is Dawn, the Self-Esteem Queen, back with another episode of Ask the SEQ. This one today is one that I think that we can all relate to if we've ever been inside of a church and then questioned some of the things that happen in churches. Dear Dawn, lately I've been feeling like a bad Christian. I don't go to church and I no longer watch TV preachers. I've seen a lot of different preachers who run big churches steal from their members. I've seen them live in luxury while the people in their congregation suffer. I've seen medium and smaller churches plagued with jealousy, adulterous pastors, thieving accountants, and more that I don't want to name. I live a pretty decent life. I don't do anything horrible. I'm pretty happy and I love God. I feel bad because I was having a conversation with someone I know and he asked me if I went to church. I told him that I didn't go to church. He told me he goes to the church down the street from his house, but it's in his words stale. I questioned him as to why he would go to a church where he wasn't being spiritually fed, and he just replied, "It's around the corner, and we're supposed to fellowship with like-minded people." When I asked him if he talked to anyone from his church away from there, he said he didn't. Then he called me one night and proceeded to tell me all his personal business about him and his girlfriend, and it was weird, so I got off the phone. But then he called me a few days later and blamed it on being drunk. I'm lost. Why do people put so much weight on associating going to church with being a Christian when the majority of them keep doing things that are not Christian-like? Okay, so I know that in this day and age, a lot of people, spectacular, don't you start. She does that a lot every time I'm about to record a video. I know a lot of people that are like my age, I'm almost 35, that look at Christianity a lot different. I know for myself, I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and then I switched over to AME, which is African Methodist Episcopal. And then after that, I was non-denominational. And a lot of people associate being a part of a big church or going to a big church, you know, this huge thing, especially in African American culture, when the reality is that I see a pastor these days, a lot of them, as nothing more than a motivational speaker who speaks about God, just like I'm a motivational speaker and I speak about self-esteem and self-improvement and stuff like that. I rarely tell people that I went to school to be a minister because there's already a negative connotation around pastors, bishops, ministers, the whole hierarchy of the situation. I know that I went to a church. It was actually the church where I rededicated my life to Christ. The pastor was someone that I had known since like 91, 92. And he was the best friend or ex-best friend of my stepfather. He basically started his own church, and it became a big, like, middle-sized church in Los Angeles. And then we had a build-out fund, raised over $1 million. Nothing ever got built out. I went to him for help after Hurricane Katrina, and they seemed disenchanted, although they had members of the church who were willing to like spearhead the project because we all have family in Louisiana. It seemed like they weren't moved. To date, nothing ever got built out from that $1 million plus that we raised. And he was accused of having an affair with the woman that helps the wife. And her husband is the man that helped him. I worked in that church, volunteered for a few years. And the things that I saw were just shocking and appalling. And they made me really question my faith, because here I am following somebody whose main objective is relationships and marriage, like that was his platform, and here he is cheating on his wife. It wasn't just that one woman, it was other women that came forward. But it turns me off. And I know that there are politics everywhere, but I think people are raised to believe that if they were raised in the church, right, especially African Americans, if we're raised in a church and we're supposed to like grow up and go to church, work in the church, like a church is a business just like any other business. The difference is, what is your reason for going? The reality is that everybody's reason for going to church isn't the same. Like you say, your friend says one thing and does another. You have to also remember that everybody's not in the same place with their walk with God as you are. Some people are further ahead, some people are lagging behind, some people fall short and, revert back to a lifestyle that they used to have. People are not perfect. With that being said, if you are comfortable with your relationship with God, right? And let's be important and let's be clear about what a relationship with God is. A relationship with God is, in my opinion, not never talking to God and then expecting that to be called a relationship. If you were in a relationship with a man or a woman, you would expect to talk to that person every day. I think that some people get confused with their relationship with God and their going to church. A lot of people go to church, and church becomes another place to gather and another social event. Then there are people who really worship God when no one's watching. They don't Instagram it. They don't tweet, oh, just pray. They pray. They're not busy reposting scriptures and God things because they're serving God. There's definitely a difference between people who go to church and it's their social event and people who worship God. And I think that it's important in any church you go to identify who those people are and then to govern yourself accordingly. I know that I've had people I considered friends to be dating bishops, and I had to stop being their friend because the lifestyle that this person was living was wow. And just her rudeness and abrasiveness, and she's not very kind. And some of the things that she says about people within her own congregation are kind of shocking. So it was really hard for me as a Christian, somebody who really followed God, to be inside of these churches, meet different people, get to know them and love them, and then realize that they fall short too. So it's really important for me, in my opinion, to have really good friends who are practicing Christians offline and away from church. So you have to pick and choose and decipher. I mean, going to church and being a Christian are two totally different things. People go to church all the time and they're going just to feel good. Some people are not going for any other purpose than to pick up a man or a woman. You don't know people's heart when they step into the church house. You just know that they're there. You know that you shop at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, and you don't know what other people are going through. You just know you guys all shop at the same place. Just because you guys all shop at the same place doesn't mean you guys are all coming to buy the same thing. And you need to take that same thought process and put it inside of church. If your friend is just going to church but he's not being fed, so it's just an act. Like, I work, eat, sleep, repeat. I get up, I brush my teeth, I take a shower. It's just a part of his daily routine or his weekly routine or his monthly routine. And that's fine. But it doesn't have to be a part of your routine if you don't want it to be. How you see God and your relationship with God is totally interdependent of you. And if other people have different relationships with God that are not comfortable for you, then you should be questioning your friendship with these types of people. Because I always say it, and I'll say it again. Jim Rohn said, you become the average of the 5 people that you choose to be around the most. And I believe it. And if you're around people who are not doing things in conjunction with who they say they are, remember, skeletons don't just lay in closets. They come out at the most inconvenient times. And I'd not like for my brand as a mom to my kids, or as a friend to other people, or as a life coach to some of my clients, all of my clients, I would not like to be known for the drama of somebody else or the skeletons in somebody else's closet. All of my skeletons have been revealed. I continue to reveal them because I'm not perfect. I don't proclaim to be perfect. However, I teach people to live, seek, and say the truth. With that being said, if that's the type of lifestyle that you're already living, you're already telling people how to seek, say, and live the truth, then you're doing your part. And you may be listening to gospel music on Pandora, or you may be helping somebody out in a volunteer situation, or you may be praying for a number of people who either know you're praying for them or don't know you're praying for them. That makes you a good Christian. Going to church, if you go to church and you are like that person who's in the choir but always complains about the choir director, not good. If you're that person who's an usher but always complains that the meetings are inconvenient, not good. If you are a greeter and you always complain that you don't like what you guys have to wear, not good. If you go to church and you're happy to serve, like my beautician, that's how I met my beautician. She, first of all, I love her. I love her tremendously. And the reason why I love her is because when I met her because she was on the praise team at my church. And she always, like, I would just stare at her. And I would say to myself, I wish that I could be friends with her because she is so happy and she is so in the spirit. Years later, because that was in 2001, it's almost 2014. And she's still that same person to this day. To this day, she's still that same person. Shout out to Tony P. And so, in picking and choosing, right, who she was away from church and who she was at church was exactly the same person and has been the same person for years. And you have to find people like that. We don't even go to the same church. Neither one of us go to that church anymore. But when we get together, it's always fellowship. So that's the blessing. And you have to find people like that. And you create your own church. The Bible says when two or more people are gathered in my name, I am there. Only takes 2. You can go to dinner and have church right there. You can have church in Starbucks. You can have church in your car. I have church with my kids all the time. All the time. So, you know, sometimes we're taught things, like we're taught to put weight in going to church, Bible study on Wednesdays, church on Sundays. We're taught to go eat after church. We're taught all these things. But the question is, who's really serving? That's the real question. Who's really serving? And who's really serving for the betterment of pleasing God rather than for the betterment of getting accolades from man? So there's some real definite questions that need to be asked and that need to be answered within you. And then before you look at somebody else, look within. How good of a Christian are you? What types of things do you do to better the Word of God? What type of example are you setting for people around you? These are all things that need to be taken into account. And remember, nobody is perfect. So You know, there are people that go to church and they only go to church to see what somebody else is wearing, or they only go to church to see if this person is coming or that person is coming. None of your concern. None of your concern. And if it bothers you that, you know, you have a friend that you're not yoked with, because it's not about this person, your friend, going to church where he's not being fed. Like, that has nothing to do with you. But if you feel that the two of you are not yoked as friends, you can always discontinue the friendship. Like, I wouldn't try to argue with somebody about this or that. Not when you have all these millions of people in the world who may be better yoked to you than this person. Just saying. Hope that helps.